Okay, so everybody worked on putting walls around your city and hopefully upgrading to 5.1.1 and then reopening your project and watching shaders build for half an hour.
I had done that, but then since I imported the model and dragged the file graph, so apparently it wants to recompile.
It does want to recompile again once you do pull all of that in. So if you missed the Discord message, I placed the migrated Lieutenant Belka on our Google asset drive, so you can just simply download it. I left everything in there. I also added a couple of other little things that will be useful in the coming days and weeks as we work on this project. So you will probably want to pull those in as well. I do want to go over the process to migrate something. So if you run into an asset that says, hey, I cannot, hey, that sounds Italian. It's says it cannot install to a more recent version of Unreal. It wants to install to 4 something or 5 or something like that. I ran into that with the Paragon Lieutenant Belka. It did not want to install to 5.1, but it was fine installing to 5.0. So I reinstalled 5.0 on my system, added it to the project, and then it shows up in my hierarchy, of course. To migrate something to a newer version is actually very simple, as long as you have the older version of Unreal installed. And I'm going to walk through that process. You don't have to do that if you just simply download it from the DET asset repository.
The older version of Unreal? Yeah, you said it's easier to migrate some if you have the older version of Unreal?
Yeah, if you have it installed.
Okay.
Because you can just simply add it to the project. Then once it's added to the project, right-click on the folder and tell it to migrate. Oh, wow. Yeah, they made it easy. Select everything that you want to migrate. I went ahead and just said, yeah, okay, everything, and didn't worry about it. And then tell it where you want it to migrate to. So in this case, I was migrating it from, I created a project called Asset Migration. I know, real original naming. And then I migrated it to my DET 340 FPS project. And of course you want to put it inside your content folder. Okay? That's really all it is. And then you say select folder, it migrates everything. The next time you open the project, it does have to rebuild the shaders for anything that you just added. So it could be a little time consuming, but it's not really all that bad. I also added a few first-person tools in the DET asset repository that will make your lives easier. So if you have not downloaded those, I suggest that you do. There were 3 of them: first-person arms, and first-person weapon. And we may get as far as using the arms today, so I would make that a priority to install. But it's not very big. It shouldn't kill your system to pull that in. Okay, so let's jump into our project then. First thing I want to do, there's actually only one part that I'm using from Lieutenant Belka, and it has a really cool drone that we're going to shoot at. We're going to have the invasion of the drones. And so I'm going to go into the Lieutenant Belka project, to the characters folder, heroes folder, Belka folder, meshes folder, and the Belka drone. And if you go in there, you're going to see Belka drone, physics assets, and skeleton. I'm going to double click on the Belka drone, and open that up in my material editor. Now, by default, for some reason, our materials are not showing up. So I'm going to go ahead and dock this just to make life a little easier. Here we go. So it's not showing. Have I lost everybody? Because you need to do these steps. It's going, no, what are you doing to me? Now this is really easy once you're there, because the materials, the textures are that we're going to use are there, but it's just simply not finding them. So up here on the left where I've got my asset details, I have my material slots, 1, 2, and 3, elements 0, 1, and 2. And right now it's set to the M. Belka drone bomb. Well, it's not finding M. Belka drone bomb. And quick review, why does it have the letter M in front of it? It's a material. We put an M in front of materials. We put BP in front of blueprints. It's just to help us stay organized. So I've got my M. Belka drone. I'm clicking on the name. And then I'm going to scroll through. And it jumped from where I wanted to be because I clicked on it too fast. There. If I go down just one, I've got one that's fully, has all the materials. So I'm going to click on that one. And now it's M. Belka Bomb 1. I need to do that for each of the 3 elements. And then it's going to prepare the shaders. It's working. And now we have a textured drone. They're not always there. This was for this project. They may have been there. So, but that's how we add them back. Look at all the cool stuff you're learning.
It's a good thing we have a class.
Yeah. So we've now got that. We want to save so that all those changes are added to it. I'm now going to jump back to FPS. I'm not adding the drone yet. We're going to do that soon, but not today. But it's ready to go once we are ready to use the drone. So we need a character. I know there's plenty in this room. It's too early for that. Stop that. Yes, I am recording this. So if you're having a hard time keeping up, there will be a recording posted. Have the shaders compiled? It took mine a few minutes to compile them. So we're going to add a character to our scene. So I'm going to Content folder, and I'm going to get out of the Paragon stuff, go back to my folder, and I'm going to add a new folder to it. I'm going to right-click and say I want a new folder, and in this folder, I'm going to keep my blueprints. Now, inside of the blueprints folder, I'm going to create another folder, and this is going to be for my character. And then I'll go inside that folder, because we like to stay organized when we're working on large projects. Always a good idea. Inside this folder, I'm going to right-click and I'm going to tell it I want to create a blueprint class. It's going to give me a number of options. So, the first option is an actor. Now, generally speaking, most things inside of Unreal are referred to as actors. Anything that we can interact with is an actor. So we have actors as a possible class. Then we have pawns. A pawn is something that can be possessed. That means picking up a weapon, a health thing, something that I can add to my character, changes an attribute on my character. That would be a pawn.
So pawn is attribute of the thing, not the item. It's not
Yes. Yes. And then, as Kai pointed out, we need to create a character because, as I pointed out, we are creating a character. So let's select a character. Now, a character derives from the actor and the pawn classes, except it can be possessed by the player. And I don't like the term possessed any more than anybody else in here likes the term possessed, but that is the terminology used in Unreal. So we're going to use the correct terminology so that we don't get out in the workplace and sound like idiots. We are going to name this BP, because this is our blueprint, and I'm going to call it underscore FPS character. So BP underscore FPS underscore character. I could call it Dr. Burton, but I'm trying to make it more general than that, since we're making a game and it's not just me. So now we have our first-person shooter character. Then I can open this up by double-clicking on it, and that will open up our blueprint area. And I have docked it at the top. Now, this might look a little different than other blueprints that we have done in the past. Remember when we went into the system, it automatically went to showing the blueprints. Well, that is still available. Right now we're in the viewport view. If we go to the event graph, that's what you're used to seeing. But we're going to stay here in viewport for a second. Okay? We've got a number of things listed here on the left. We have our capsule component. The capsule component is our collision for our character. If you feel the need to adjust the shape or the size of the capsule, please do that in the details by changing the values of capsule half height and capsule radius. Do not just go in and start scaling it. That will mess the system up. So only adjust it using the shape keys in the details panel. So I can make it taller or shorter or whatever I need to do. So we have the capsules. We also have an arrow component. Anybody care to guess what the arrow component does?
That's forward.
Tells us where we're going. Yeah, that's the direction it should be facing. So as we start to add components to this, like a camera, we want to make sure the camera is facing forward.
Unless we want to deceive the player.
Unless we want to have eyes in the back of our head, which is very useful if you're teaching 6th grade. Then we also have the mesh component. Now currently there's no mesh attached to this, but it does have a mesh component to this. And then we also have character movement. So all of these are part of our blueprint first-person shooter character by default. Those have all been added to it to make our life a little bit easier. Okay, so let's go to, I'm going to select my mesh, and then down here where it says mesh, on my details side, I'm going to select a mesh for my character. Now, I've already got several in here. I've got the Belka character. I don't want to use the drone right now. Actually, I want to use, I think I'm going to use the arms. I want the arms to be used for the environment. Now, it's going to compile a few shaders when we add arms. And I think there's a couple of different, that's the mannequin arms. Are there others? If you added the stuff that I told you about, the first person stuff, it's not importing?
No, you have to drag it in with the,
Yeah, I'm good.
so like, you have to close down the bill, and you have to like go to the file packet and copy and paste it.
We'll come back and hit that again if you're having problems. Okay, so if you look at your angle of how this is currently doing, the arms are not lined up with the direction of the arrow on this. You can see it's actually facing sideways, which is really awkward. So let's rotate those arms. So that they're facing forward. Now, I don't know about you, but usually I'm not used to seeing arms floating several feet above people's heads. But maybe that's a thing for you. And if you're having problems getting the arms in, you could go with the Belka character or one of the others. You don't have to use the arms. I'm using the arms. So the arms are floating kind of high up there. Let's pull them down a little bit so that they're coming off of the capsule. Now remember, this is a first-person shooter game, so I really don't need to see a body. I just need to see arms for things that I'm interacting with.
Would you put the face forward to negative?
Well, you get it looking right for you. I may still have my arms a little high, but we can adjust them later until we're happy with it. Now I'm going to go back to my capsule for selecting the whole thing. Now if I save, which is always a good idea to save things as you're doing it, we haven't added the character to the environment yet. But if we wanted to, after you save, make sure you do hit compile. We'll be hitting compile quite a bit. Compile checks to make sure that everything's okay before we try to add it back to our project. Now, did you notice something on the side here when we're doing, these are built off of C++ code. So our blueprint is actually got C++ behind it. You don't have to do C++, but if you want to, it's there. You can go in and edit the C++. Again, you don't need to do that because we can do it all in blueprints, but it is an option that's available to you. Let's go back to our project, and I'm going to go to my content drawer, and look at that. My first-person shooter has arms. Ooh, I feel special. I'm going to drag that into the environment. You can see there. It's appropriate for the environment. We could adjust it, but it's working. Now, if I were to run right now, press the play, may take a few seconds. Your lighting will start up. Now, notice I don't see any arms here because when I started the project, by default, Unreal is starting the project with a test tool. It is not using the character that you have. There's my arms floating in space. It's not currently using the character. In other words, I have not possessed it with my controller. You have not taken control over the floating arms or character or whatever you've selected for your thingamajigger. This is messed up. So I'm going to press escape to leave the play mode and jump back here to my first person shooter controller. Whoa, what did I do? So fast. You there? I lost it. Just having so much fun, Dr. Burton. Let us play with it. Let's get some. We're not going to get to guns today. Sorry, I hate to disappoint, but next week. We'll have guns next week.
Oh, that is a question. If we wanted to use our own, if we wanted to import a machine, that probably would not work with the multiplayer thing, I guess.
Why wouldn't?
Oh.
I have guns for you, but
Yeah,
if you wanted to import your own weapons,
I know how it's going to work.
It-
It'd be so cool if
so let's add a camera to our character so that it can truly be first-person shooter. Anybody want to take a wild guess on how we might add a camera to our blueprint character?
There's an ad.
There is an add button.
Such good time.
Let's go to the add button and scroll down, and you'll notice there are currently several cameras underneath camera. We just want a standard camera. We're not doing a cinematic camera or a spring arm camera. Now, my camera comes in at a very awkward height. So let's move it up.
we want the camera to be parented to the mesh or just to the
to the capsule. As long as it's parented to the capsule, we're fine.
That's not over the top, but it's over the top.
It is just a little bit. So you can move the camera up to about head level because that's going to cut down on motion sickness. Press the W and then drag it. And then if you need to rotate it, if it's not lined up, you can also rotate the camera. But we want the camera to be at face or head level inside of our rig.
That's exactly how it works.
And I was doing this with the Lieutenant Belka character yesterday when I was testing everything and placed it right at her face level, and it was really weird because her face was showing up in the camera lens. And it didn't create a problem when I went back to the game, but it was a little creepy with the head showing there. And then once you've got the camera where you're happy, save, compile. If it turns out that we're not happy with how the camera is, we can always come back and edit it. So these are all things, none of this is cast in stone.
Actual arrow component. So it's pointing around.
You don't want to move the arrow. The arrow's forward.
Cool, so I just have to rotate it.
Yes, everything else needs to be rotated to the arrow.
Epic.
It may take a second or two to do it. But yes, the arrow is your point of reference. And once we've got everything saved and compiled, let's jump back to our first-person shooter. Oh, look, the camera's there. And the camera's working. I can see the character's view of the environment. I may need to move my camera back a little bit because I can't really see the arms yet. That's off, but we'll play with that some more here as we go along.
We need to remove all the cameras from the scene that are not like the ones we added.
I'm sorry?
We need to remove all the cameras from the scene that are not the ones we added.
There are a couple of extra cameras in the scene that can be removed. They're cinematic cameras. So if you feel the need to delete those, feel free to. I think I already deleted mine. So. Okay, so again, if I hit the play button, I'm not in control over the floating camera with arms.
Terrifying.
It is a terrifying image. So let's make it so that I can take control over the character. So with the character selected, and notice all my components are showing up here in my details panel as well. The capsule, the mesh, the camera, everything is showing up there. I need to do a possession. So I'm going to type in possess. I know, it's creepy. And then I have an auto-possess player. Currently, that is disabled. That might be our problem. I'm going to click the down arrow, and you can see I have the option to select player 0 through player 7. Now, Unreal makes it easy for doing split-screen games. You could have 8 players in a scene sharing it on one game, and it's incredibly easy. It is literally just changing a setting and building the game, and it will run all on one system, assuming you have controllers for everybody. And you've got enough hubs for running all of the controllers, USB ports, things like that. Assuming you have that, you could have 8 players inside the same scene. We might get to that later. Hint, things to come.
Are you suggesting we're making a multiplayer shooter?
I would never suggest such a thing.
Okay. I haven't taken that one.
You don't have to.
I didn't think.
So let's select, currently this is a 1-player game. So let's select player 0. And now we should have control over it should we start the game. I'm going to save the game, save everything though, before I go any further. Yes? Do you have a question?
Me?
Yeah.
I was going to say, you won't be able to move. No. I think I have to change the world settings to where it says...
Spoiler! So I hit play, and now I start where the player is, but I can't do anything.
I've done my voodoo magic and now it won't work.
Now nothing happens. care to guess as to why? Because we don't have any code for it.
Oh, I'm gonna search up and figure out how to fix that, because a lot of people have that issue.
Basically, Unreal's concerned that it's eating up too much of your memory. It's like, you've only allotted us this much to actually keep the textures live and running and going, but you've exceeded that.
And part of that has to do with running the editor and the game, and yeah, it's overwhelmed.
Which is really very kind of Unreal, because not every engine tells you when you're starting to break things.
Yeah, you're breaking me. Stop it. So yeah, remember when you were coming in and I said by your junior year you'll need to replace your computer? Yeah. Uh-huh.
I do not want to replace this computer again. 2 other times.
It might make it.
I'm so close.
It's so close.
You did have to replace a few things though, right?
Oh, that,
Components have needed to be replaced.
I also do. I mean, I do have a new computer, but
It's a backup, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, back in blueprints. I've got my capsule components selected. Oh no, I'm going to jump down here to mesh. Now currently in mesh, I can set the animation. And I want to use the animation asset because guess what? Most assets or meshes come with animations.
Whoa.
I know, who would have thought? Classes like DET 330 and 3D animation aren't worthless. So I'm going to say use the animation asset, and then I can select the asset by default that I want it to use. I'm going to tell it to find an idle, not Eric. Did I pass it? There it is. That's a rifle idle. Is there a normal idle?
Oh.
I'll just search idle. That would make life a lot easier.
Oh, I just realized.
Nope, I don't have it.
You're looking at your meshes right now.
Whenever you do idle,
What's happening?
that's your meshes.
Yeah, that's where I want it to be.
No, you're looking at your mesh.
Your mesh, not your animation.
Oh,
Also, I realized that the animations are.
Why did it get to the floor? This might be similar.
helps if you can spell. There we go. There. And now the arms, but notice the arms rotated. So we need to fix that. And again, I'm going to move the camera back a little bit because it doesn't show my arms. Move it back a little bit so that maybe I can pick up the arms. Now, if I was holding the rifle or something, it would be much more likely that I could see them. But if I now save my project, compile, go back to the first-person shooter, I still can't see them. Oh, yeah, they are there, aren't they? I got the shoulders showing. And once I add a rifle and the arms come up, it'll be much more evident.
What is it when you do the animation asset, it will not leave
It will not leave what?
like the anim to play? Is that what you do? Use animation asset,
Use animation asset, yes,
and then,
and then select from the animate to play.
yeah, that's all grayed out.
It's grayed out. Okay, so it's not finding any animation assets that are available for that, whatever you've selected.
How do you rotate the arms again?
With the mesh selected, you can hit the E key.
Because it's rotating my camera as well.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you
Yeah,
just
you-
like the entire thing.
Yeah, it depends on whether you got capsule selected or mesh selected. If you got just the mesh and you hit the E key, you should be able to move just the arms. Ah, that would do it. It's such a child. Okay, so let's save and project compile. Now, it would be nice if we had some movement. I don't know if we will get all the way through this in the class remaining today, because this next part's going to be a little time consuming, but we're going to start the process, okay? Just fair warning, we may not have them fully motion going by the end of class. Let's jump back to our first-person shooter. And again, I'm going to save everything just to make sure that we're all up to date. Now, there are two input systems in Unreal. The legacy input system and the new improved version 5. I'm going to show you how to do the legacy system in case you ever go, hey, I'm working for insert big name game development company here. And they're saying, we're still using version 4 of Unreal. You need to edit some animations, some motion, some movement, some actions. Well, I want you to know how to get there, at least seen it once, before we start using the new version 5 tools. Okay? So, go to Edit, Project Settings. And then under Project Settings, let me make that a little bigger. Scroll down on Engine, and notice there's a thing called Input. Huh, who would have thought? So Engine Input. At the very top, it will tell you axis and action mappings are now depreciated with version 5. Please use enhanced action inputs and input mapping context instead. We're going to get to that. I just want you to see how this works. Normally for movement, that is an axis mapping. So if I wanted to add a movement blueprint, I would first have to map the axis that they are going to move along. In other words, X and Y. So I would hit the plus key and it would add mappings. And then we can add the axis configuration and do all the fun stuff underneath axis mappings. I've already created several here. So I would go in and I would say, call this movement. I don't want you to do this, I'm just showing you how it's done. In case you're ever in the situation, you can say, yes, I saw that once. And then you call me up on the phone and, how'd I do that?
I think a lot of companies are still in the transitioning process, so they're still in Unreal 4.
Right,
So
and
legacy-
that is why I'm showing this.
It's probably like, you've got to make sure that Epic doesn't shake them down too hard on getting right.
Yeah, and they're
to
continuing
5.
to maintain version 4. It is a thing, and 5's only been out a year. If you started your project a year ago, you're probably using 4. Though Epic is pushing hard the whole, hey, look at this company, they transitioned to 5 and they're really happy. Please transition to 5. So we have the option for movement. We can do keyboard mappings, mouse mappings, all kinds of stuff. I want back to keyboard. So if I wanted to map, say, a keyboard W key not that anybody would ever want to use that, I can map it real easy. And that is now mapped and available to me in blueprints. That's where the mapping goes. Axis mappings control movement. Action mappings would control like pickups or doing actions.
Too.
Yes. Nothing real surprising here. Yes, F to pay respects. So that is how we would do mappings. But wait, that's not how we're doing it anymore. If you jump down a little further, there's a thing called enhanced input. But we're not going to use that. So we're just going to close it. Just in case you notice it, that it's there. Yeah. So let's go back to our content drawer. And we've got our character, our blueprint. I'm going to go up a line to blueprints, and I'm going to add another folder, and I'm going to call it something really original, inputs. I know. I'm just really pushing the envelope here with my naming conventions.
Slow down, bro.
I can't handle it. Stop it. Then I'm going to go into the inputs folder, and I'm going to right click and go up to, oh, I don't know, maybe input. They're trying to confuse us, I'm sure of it. And we're going to create an input action. And we're going to name this IA for input action. And we're going to name it move forward. Then I'm going to double click on that, and it's going to open a different window. And this is where we're going to set our values. Make sure I'm following all the steps right. And we're going to add a keyboard. Oh, first of all, we need to set the value type. Now this is movement. Notice what our values are. We've got Boolean movements. We have one-axis movement. We have two-dimensional movement, or 2D. And then we have 3D movement. Now we're moving on the ground. So let's select 2D. Why would we select a Boolean? In what use case? What use case?
Click a button.
Click a button. Fire a gun.
Depending on the type.
Pull the trigger.
Then if you want like I guess it depends whether it consumes the input.
But, okay, that would be a hold.
So,
But that's the program.
so the Boolean distinct from a hold? Like, is the Boolean supposed to be?
Boolean could handle a hold.
Oh, okay, okay.
It could also handle jumps.
That's what I just said.
Good job.
People were talking over me. Blame it on other people. So we want to add, we've got our 2D axis, and is it a modifier? The trigger. No, we don't have a trigger for that. That's not it either. Okay, I've got my 2D axis. What am I missing? Consume input, put. Oh, okay, I just need to create it. So this is going to handle my 2D movement. We'll save that. And this is only handling W and S. And I'm going to go back to my content drawer. I'm going to create a second input action. And this is going to be for sideways movement. And yes, it is possible to do them both as one, but I'm doing this on purpose. So IA moves sideways. Okay. And again, we're going to go into move sideways, and it's going to be 2D axis. I feel like I'm missing a step. No, that's not it. I'm going to just keep moving forward, and if I'm wrong, we'll come back and fix it. Okay, so back in my content drawer, I'm going to right-click, input, and do input mapping context. The context pulls upon the first two, the actions. So we're going to need this IMC for input mapping context, and we're going to associate it with our first person shooter character. So input mapping context, and this is our character. And I'm going to double click on it, and now we can set up our mappings. So I've got a mapping here on the top left. Click the down arrow, and I want to use IA move forward. And look at that. I got IA move forward, and it says, hey, what keyboard key do you want to associate that with? Oh, I don't know. Maybe the W key. And hey, would you like another? Yes, sir, please. So let's go and add an S for going backwards. But wait, there's more. We need to add a modifier because S goes backwards. So it needs to negate the value or a negative value. So I'm going to select negate. Only need to do that for the S. The W, it will know it's going forward. Now, assignment time. Do this for sideways.
I'm not Doc, that's a tall order.
It's, I know.
As we try to play out there.
We can't, wait, we move in the scene one.
A is negative. And if you really want to be creative, add a gamepad controller. What?
Only this rank console peasants. Okay, I love consoles.
I respect the nostalgic value.
I don't like the way you did that. Besides the fact, for most people, like $500 consoles.
Well, no, that's definitely.
A is negative. PC runs better than
A is negative.
Like, A, we need to make this, not A is.
Negative negate,
Yeah.
just like we did for S.
I like computer games better, but I grew up in consoles. So it's like special.
You're going to add forward
Yeah, that.
You suggested we do that.
Yes, that would be.
Oh,
Yeah, if you click on the keypad there. Click on one of them. No, keyboard.
okay.
Keyboard itself. But yes, you can change that to something else
If I wanted to.
if you wanted to.
I infected. Getting good at the screen, you can't do anything.
No, it's lovely, right? Like, it is compatible series 3 times in a row now. I haven't been able to even get our phone open yet.
Good thing we recorded this.
No kidding.
Yeah, because my
Oh,
other
yeah.
was not having a fun time with trying to get the models in, that I was like, let me try a different way just now. Let's just open up the folder itself.
Also, I found out saw something about the Texas screen for sure people like having that issue, like into this works. Are you
That is an excellent question. We do not have time for that. There is just no way, because that is a 40-minute process, and we have like 25 minutes left. It's going to take more time than what we have to connect it to our blueprint code. I don't think I can get through it in the time that's remaining.
All we've really done was set up the button.
So like, what
Yeah,
if, what if we figure it out on our own?
So, there's multiple tutorials out there for doing the coding. So if you want to explore that over the weekend, I would highly encourage you to do so. But we do have a number of people that have not been able to get to this point because their computers have been recompiling or frozen or something like that. Yeah, but there are issues in this classroom, and most of them are computer related.
You know.
Hey, let's get personal. Stop it. I feel called out. So, over the weekend, get caught up if your computer's having problems. And if you're feeling daring, try and get movement working. It's about most of the tutorials I've seen on there are about 20 minutes long to do that, which is why there's no way I can cover that in class with the time that's remaining. So I'm going to instead open it up to what questions do you have about what we're doing or what we have done so far. Emma?
Regarding mobile animations, so
Yes.
I've not figured it out.
Yes, I'll come around and help you with animations.
Are we only working with like one weapon, or are we only working with?
We're going to start with one weapon.
Right.
We'll see how far we get. But yes, there's no reason why you couldn't have multiple weapons in the environment and have an action to switch to a new weapon and have the programming for that weapon. That might be a nice little project for the turn-in for this.
I have multiple ideas if I can figure out how to get if I can figure out the weapon replacements and stuff. Like I normally import a mesh and then I see about how the mesh is like works and such. Oh,
Mentioned
move it
stem
over
was
there
right.
and it works.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, so I guess we'll probably go over it when we get to things. But how do we add extra animation?
Yeah, out of
So it's
context of the oak biome.
Is there a way to convert that?
Usually if we bring in an animation, like say it's for biped, and we will get into associating animations with bipeds.
Yeah.
That's just later on. There's a tool in Unreal to associate an animation with a specific biped.
Okay, so.
The tools are there, we just haven't gotten that far.
Base state.
Yes. Yes, you can add more, dances or, F for perspective. Things like that. And if you look in the animation list, if you've got your characters set as Lieutenant Belka, there is a wave and a respect and salute and stuff like that.
The one I ended up using was the offset, but I don't name offset.
So there's lots of cool stuff out there.
It is interesting that they have these sort of character mechanisms, and then they. And I don't know for what particular reason.
That is weird that they include, because normally you, but
And
we will be adding the
animations
weapons.
change where the gun sits, and its most basic stage is like between your feet.
Right.
Then you set up the animations like, okay, now.
Now we're good. So, next week we will be adding our movement blueprint, and I think we'll get to adding the weapon and being able to fire the weapon. So, we're moving right along, considering we're 1 week into this project. It is starting to come together. All right, I'm going to stop the recording then.